Well, hey, this is Jerry. I'm bringing you another episode of What's Broke Today. Today I have a 2006. It's a Chevrolet 1500 Silverado four-wheel drive that every once in a while they're having to add brake fluid. So thought we'd start looking for our leak, and since they're not adding brake fluid very often, I thought the first place I'd look was up here by the brake master cylinder, because a lot of times if you got a slow leak, you'll see, you know, underneath the master cylinder that if I can get the camera. Yeah, a lot of times you can see underneath the master cylinder here, you'll see it wet, which of course this one is dry. I got the left rear drum off, and which is probably a good thing, because boy, look how thin that lining's getting. I mean, we're down to not much there, but all I look at here is pry this boot back. Even though we're not losing enough fluid, or the amount of fluid he's losing, we should have a mess here. But yep, there we go. See the fluid running out. We'll peel the rear piston off first, or dust boot, or whatever you want to call it. And we're drying the rear one, but looking at the front one, you know, as the shoes wear, since we're wore more on the front than the back, the front piston's out farther. And there comes more fluid. So we need rear shoes, rear wheel cylinders, and I think our steel lines and all the lines are going to be good. So, okay, so I pulled the master cylinder loose, and looking down in there, that feels like brake fluid. I can go get her. I gotta wipe off my fingers because I don't want to touch my camera with brake fluid. The hose out of the way. Yeah, see, look at that. See all the crud. So, I almost bet that there's brake fluid down inside of there. Oh yeah. Let me go get my fluid extractor. I got the fluid extractor set up. I got the hose stuck down in the brake booster, and in the beginning, I'm actually going to film for the owner of the truck so he can see. And as you watch, as I start pumping, fluid's going to come up this hose. That I normally wouldn't use my fluid extractor for this, but it looks like there's a lot of brake fluid. Yeah, the brake booster's full of fluid. Okay, a lot of brake fluid down in that booster. Now the booster was still working fine, so what I'm going to do is I'll replace the master cylinder and get that the rear brakes, wheel cylinders, shoes done. Put new master cylinder on, bleed everything out, and then we'll have to see how the brake booster performs with no brake fluid in it. And I think since I got the fluid out, if the booster performs well, I'll probably not change it, but I'm going to leave that in there because, you know, there was probably close to a quart in that booster. Because here my my fluid extractor, each line is roughly a quart, and you know, I'm damn near to the first line, and I drained it before I started this. And of course, after I get done, I'm gonna drain it. I'm actually gonna let it set quite a while, make sure I get as much of that brake fluid out as I can, because if that brake fluid ever gets into the pump, it will ruin my fluid extractor. Alright, getting started, and first thing I'm going to do is this spring that comes across here, I'm just going to take my wire cutters and grab it and unhook it and pull it out. Yeah, and the next thing I'm going to do is this little clip thing for auto adjuster hooks over that pin. We're going to pull it off, and then I'm going to take this adjuster and back it off so that it'll be easier to remove it. Now this is the pain in the butt part of this, because get my camera in the right spot. I've ordered me one, but I don't have that special tool for the spring, so I'll pull it out on this side, which is easier said than done. If I got that tool, it basically hooks on here, and then you can hook it on the spring, and you can stretch it out and then pull it out, and it's not near the fight that this is. I'm going to take it loose on the other side, which easier said than done, and then I'll be able to get that shoe out of the way, pull it back, and get that shoe out of the way, and then I'll go ahead and work that and get that out of the way, and I can pull on the parking brake cable where I unhooked it up front, and then I'll just take and push it down and out, and then I can just slide that off. That's out of the way. Then I'm going to go on the back side and take the brake line loose. Okay, and after I get that loose, then there's I got an E8 torque socket. I'm going to take the screws out of the back of the wheel cylinder. There's number 2. I'll get my socket ready so I can start them. Take my pry bar and get in here and pop the wheel cylinder loose and get it out of the way. My brake line started first. Alright, we'll try this again, because sitting down there on the ground, it was hard to get that. I didn't have the leverage I needed to get to turn the line by hand to get it started. I didn't want to force it with the wrench and cross thread it, so we're going now. Getting close. Okay, then I get my socket and my bolts and get them started. So I'll get the mounting bolts tight. Then I'll take my wrench and tighten the line. wash this again because I got some, I'll block the camera. Don't want to hit it with brake clean. Okay. Now I'm going to get my pistons, get the slots in them pointing straight up. While. And then where the shoes rub the backing plate, I always use this disc brake caliper lube and just take and put a little bit of it where the shoes are going to touch the backing plate. It don't need much, but you'll be able to see the shiny spot where the shoes were rubbing. I'll put a little where it touches the wheel cylinder and a little more down here, but it don't need a whole lot, and you could probably really get by without it. It's just something I do. Now, the next sucky thing to do is getting this cable back into this shoe, because you got to push it up through the spring and then lock it through that clip. So get that through there and make sure you got it going through. Yeah, make sure you always get the spring going through that bracket. Okay. Now I'm going to hold the cable so it can't move and see if I can get it pushed through that bracket. And then I can pop it up and lock it. Which sometimes easier said than done. Should have brought my little screwdriver. I get that cable where it's up here on top of this arm, up here where it locks in, and we can push the excess back through. And then this is a sucky part, dealing with this spring, because if you have the proper tool, it's actually not bad. But like I say, currently I don't own one. But I get that pulled around. I'm going to grab this with my needle nose vice grips. I get them adjusted right. I have a good grip on them there. Bring this around and I can pull that out and get the shoe up in there where it belongs. That's being a pain. Now let's see if I can go ahead and get this one hooked while I'm here. The worst thing is that once I get this one hooked, if I don't have I always want to make sure I do this one first, because it makes it harder to do the other one. But I want to get my vice grips on here really good. Okay, I'm going to set things back a little bit, because last thing I want to do is flip and hit something and bust my camera. I'll have my pry bar, get my shoe. I'm going to pull that spring out and get my shoe underneath it, kind of like so. And then I'm going to pull my stool up. Because that's another thing I can't do sitting on the ground. because I need my knee up against the shoe, or at least my leg, and I pull that out and get it on top of the shoe, and then I'm going to take and pry that spring out with the pry bar and the thing so I get it hooked. And basically I'm going underneath the axle housing and just prying that spring out. And then after I do that, I can get back down here and it's back on there. There's a big sigh of relief, because that's the hardest part of the job, is putting that back in. Now I get my adjuster ready and get my pry bar again, and when you look at the adjuster, the short end goes in, and then on the other end, short end is also in, and that narrow groove is what this little arm goes into, is that little skinny groove. So I'm going to hook it on the parking brake arm, and I'm going to come in here and pry that out so I can put get out far enough for that to go in. I can let off of it, push the shoe up and get it lined up, and then I put that little arm, slides over the end of that pin, and I can hook that, and it goes in the hole closest to the adjuster, and then just stretch it out and hook it. There we go. Now the only thing left to do is to run the shoes out till they're getting close to the drum. It's just easier to put that in with it closer to the, as short as it can possibly be. There's probably about 5/16 to 3/8 of an inch of thread usually showing when I'm ready for the drum. And if that's about 1/4, I can grab my drum, put it up there, and we're close. And we'll give and that's good. And then after I get all that done, I got to hook up parking brake cables. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the other side. Looks like a 8mm wrench. And I'm going to you always want to bleed from the farthest away wheel cylinder, so I'm going to start on the other side. And I'm just going to, what I'm doing is letting it do just a basic gravity bleed, and then when we get a little farther along, I'll show you how I power bleed these things, because I don't have a traditional power bleeder, but I got me a deal rigged up that works pretty good. Okay, there I got my light, so maybe you can see. I'm going to pop the booty off. It covers the bleeder screw. Now I'm just going to loosen it up a little and just let it, just the weight of the brake fluid in a little bit is going to fill up and start running out. There we go. And once I got fluid there, I'm just going to snug it up. And then I'm going to basically go and do the same thing on the other side, but I'm not going to record that. Okay, now that I got the rear done and a little bit of what we call gravity bleeding of the rear wheel cylinders, I got to swap out the brake master cylinder. Of course, the first thing I do is unplug the wire going to the master cylinder for the sensor for the brake fluid level, which sometimes is easier said than done. There we go. Pocket knife helps. And then I was just assuming they were metric, but a 14 was a little tight. So I'm just going to take and loosen up the lines. And for the most part, once I get them loose, usually I can just spin the nuts out by hand. But I get both of those loose, and then you just pull the lines back and then carefully get this out of the way, because hopefully that came with a new O-ring. But if you look here at the back end of the master cylinder, you can see where it's been leaking. Alright, yeah, and got up my new master cylinder. I actually got it mounted in the vise, and this one came with plugs, and I went and stuck them in the holes because I need to get part of the bench bleeding process is getting the air out of the cylinder. And when you look down through the hole here, which on this style it's not too bad because it holds at an angle, but as I push this in, I can see the air bubbles coming up through the top. See if you can see down in there, but yeah, see the bubbles coming up. And I just keep working that so I can pump all those air bubbles out. Alright, it's probably been about 10 minutes since I stopped filming, but I was to the point where when I was pushing, I was not getting any bubbles, hardly at all up out of that port. So I leaned up against it, and then I just loosened these plugs that came with the kit. And when you do, you'll hear air come out. And as soon as you see fluid, you can close it off. So you always want to close it before you let off pressure. Now I'll reapply pressure and do the other one. And I got rags underneath just watching it drip. And the good indication when you have successfully got it bench bled, put the cap on, but when you go to push in on this, it just barely moves and gets solid. So I got my bench bleeding done. Now we're going to head back to the truck. Now I'm back up at the truck. While I was coming up, I kept the master cylinder up vertical so we didn't introduce no air. I brought a shop rag. I'm going to wipe out the opening in the front of the booster and get all that muck and stuff out of there. Make sure it's clean. I can take my new master cylinder and pull that off there. Move that over where I can get a better grip. Okay, got that started. Now let's pull the front one off. I had trouble getting these plug or little caps started when I was out there anyway, so that's probably why I was having trouble getting that line started on the back. Got them both started now. Get that wire out of the way. Let's plug it in. Alright, now I got them both started. I'm just going to snug them up. Just enough to keep them from dripping. And the new master cylinder came with a new O-ring thing already on it. Oops. Had both those nuts in my hand. I dropped one. And that won't happen very often, that it fell down and fell out at my feet. And then we can tighten up the master cylinder. Okay. There's that. So, wow. I'm gonna have to go get more fluid because it took a full quart to fill that up. It's been a while since I did one of these. We're gonna start getting ready for bleeding, and what I made here is I took an old cap. There goes my ratchet. I drilled the top of it and put a brass fitting in it, and then I took the rubber piece out and I cut a little notch in it, and then underneath the rubber here there's a slot in one spot to allow air. Well, here, pop this out. There's a little groove in here, and that allows air to get underneath, so as you use brake fluid our little bellows can pop out. So I siliconed around there on this so that it would not, you know, that air wouldn't escape. It would force it down into the master cylinder. So I'm going to finish getting ready for my bleeding, and then I'll walk you through how I bleed. Getting ready to do my bleeding, and I've rigged up this thing with that cap with the brass fitting and then a piece of hose, and I bought this tool I got here will screw on. You can air up a bicycle tire, something small. Well, I have it rigged up for this, and also use it on 2-cycle carburetors like Mikuni, you know, the Super BNs, to check pop-off pressure on the needle valve. So it's kind of a low pressure gauge, because you can't over pressure. You don't want too much air pressure going to the master cylinder. But I can put that cap on, and then I put my glasses on so I read at the master cylinder. Must have had something in the, or else the top of that's not smooth. So yeah, we'll just put that on, and then, yeah, I can hear it leaking, but that's all right. What I'll start out with is I'll loosen one of the lines, just a little, and then I'll pump this. As I do that, it'll bleed any air out that's at that fitting. Then I'll loosen the next one and do the same thing. Then I'll wash some of that off with brake clean. And okay, now we'll head for the wheels. Well, hey, I'm gonna wrap up the Silverado brake job video with the leak. That if I don't edit out some of what I recorded, I'm gonna have a 45 or 50-minute video, which most people probably don't want to watch anyway. But I'm gonna leave the important stuff in of replacing the master cylinder, bench bleeding, and change out the shoes and the wheel cylinders. What I'm editing out is all the other little checks I did. Because of where I live, I looked at all the steel brake lines front to back, because I've replaced plenty of those brake lines on trucks similar to that in that era. I pulled off the front wheels and checked the front brake pads, checked the front calipers for leaks, and that was all good. All the brake hoses were good. The bleeder screws on the front calipers, they've probably never been opened. I used my little butane torch to heat up the caliper and then get the screws broke free, and then worked them a few times, freed them up so I could bleed out the front brakes. And all of it turned out good, because like I say, the steel brake lines had some surface rust, but not the normal Midwest salt driven roads rust. And overall, the underneath side of that truck is in excellent shape for where it lives. So, but I do appreciate you watching. I always love the thumbs up for the likes. Thank you to all my subscribers, that I'm glad to have all of you, and would love to have a bunch more. That just stay tuned, because no telling what else you're going to see on What's Broke Today. Thank you.